Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Caught by Happy podcast. On today's show, I'm talking to a young lady by the name of Emma Petersen, or Emma Dayton Peterson, as she goes by on the old Instagram. She's an aspiring, and I guess you could say struggling actor out in LA, where most struggling actors live. It is a tough business, that show business, and she's going to tell us all about it, why she does it, how she got into it, and why she continues to pursue her dream of being a real working Hollywood actor. But first, you probably noticed I've taken a little bit of time off from the show. It is summer after all, and the pandemic certainly hasn't helped things. Many people who are in my situation, and that is to say, parents of young children, were slam busy with trying to keep the kids engaged and entertained while also trying to earn a living and keep food on the table. So I took some time off from recording and editing this show to take a little trip up to Western New York to visit family. We had a great little break. The kids got to swim in Grandma's pool. We even cleaned out an old barn, me and my siblings, and you can see all about that on my Instagram and TikTok pages. But the point is, it's important to take some time to rest and reset and recharge, refocus. And I am refocused. I feel refocused, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be cranking out weekly episodes again. I'm definitely going to keep making these, but on maybe a slightly irregular cadence. So don't be surprised if a month goes by and you don't hear from CBH Pod, but we'll be back when a good guest comes along ready to tell their story of perseverance, struggle, and success. Hey, I've got a couple of really great products I've enjoyed using recently listed out for you in my show notes. They are affiliate links to their Amazon pages, so you can check them out, maybe make a purchase if you like what you see. And when you do that, you'll be kicking back a very, very small percentage into the production of this show. So thank you for taking a look at those and any other link that I throw in those notes as well. Okay, back to Emma. One of the reasons why I connected with her in the first place is because of her podcast called The Everyday Actor. And you should definitely check out her show if you're pursuing a path in the performing arts or filmmaking, production, really anything in that industry. It's nice to get some information from people on the inside who are working hard to make art and perfect their craft. And if you're into that kind of thing, I do think checking out her show might be something you'd want to do. So let's just jump right into it. This is my talk with an up-and-coming actor who lives out in LA. She's working as a waitress. She's taking all those acting classes. She's working hard every single day for that chance, just that chance of getting a shot. And we're going to hear all about it right now. This is my chat with Emma Petersen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We're good to go. We're just going to hop right in.
Okay. I love it.
Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. I do the
All
same
right.
thing with my podcast, like to keep it as kind of conversational and keep everything in there as possible.
Yeah. So, well, since you mentioned it, why don't you just go ahead and tell me right now about your podcast? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast has been kind of my passion project. I've been working on it for probably the last 6 months, but I got it going during quarantine.
Yeah.
So I'm an actor, and one of my goals with my podcast was to create a network for myself while also teaching other actors. So I have my BFA in acting, and one of the things that school doesn't teach you is what to do with your degree and basically what happens after school. So I have all this amazing training and had no idea what to do with it. So I started reaching out to different actors and different people that I aspire to be like, but are still working actors, aren't necessarily famous, but are doing really well in their everyday kind of actor grind. So I created the podcast interviewing those people, so different actors and also other people in the industry to see what their daily lives look like and how they got to where they are. So my podcast is called The Everyday Actor, and there's a new episode every other Monday.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been great. I've been really connecting with new people, with old friends, and it's been just wonderful.
And how has the reception been when you ask people? How do they generally respond? Are they like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to do it," or do they want to hop right in and talk to you about it?
People really wanna do it. So
Yeah.
it's been a good thing for me because it gives me exposure, but also everybody I'm recording with also wants exposure for themselves. So it's a mutual win-win situation. So I haven't had any issues with anybody not wanting to actually, which has been great.
And you're not just talking to actors, you're talking to like producers and people behind the scenes too, right?
Exactly, yeah, but even producers they want people to see their work and to wanna work with them, and every person has had their own almost like call to action for the listeners, either to follow them somewhere, look at their work, or share work with them, and it's been great for everybody involved.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned that you started it up pretty much when quarantine began.
Mhm.
So let's talk about where you were before quarantine began, before this whole thing hit. What was your acting career looking like at that point?
So January-ish was going really well. Um,
Yeah.
I I don't yet have an agent, but I have been self-submitting every day. I booked 3 commercials this year before quarantine, filmed those, like, local stuff as well as bigger internet, YouTube commercials, and I was working every day towards something, auditioning all the time, sending in all my work. Then quarantine hit, so it kind of put a halt on everything, but I've been doing what I can.
So what was that like? Did video production, any kind of like production just stop altogether out in California?
Pretty much. So it was kind of funny. So basically, what I do every day is I go on and self submit myself for things. And there's 3 websites that I use: Actors Access, LA Casting, Backstage. And every day, there's probably on each site, there's over 100 to 200 roles every day popping up
Hmm.
new. And now, and starting like right at the beginning of quarantine, I just watched it dwindle, just less and less and less work. And the things that were filming, that were still looking for actors were not legit. So it was one of those things that I had to be really careful that they were following rules and that basically we stopped looking on those sites unless it was for voiceover or just auditions for future projects because it was just there started being a lot of scams.
Now with the projects that got cut, were a lot of those just my own curiosity
Mhm.
get put on hold and they're going to be done at a later date, or do you think they just transitioned into like we're going to do animation only or we're going to do like some kind of CGI?
It's different for every project. The problem right now that a lot of projects are having is funding. So, the indie projects that were in the middle of filming, which is I mean, I don't know the statistic, but it's probably 90% of, like, what's actually being done as film is indie projects.
Hmm.
And it's too much money right now, so they lost a lot of money by having to halt their project, but then also the problem that they're having right now is in order to do the safety procedures that are legally necessary to have people on set now, it's millions of dollars, so they
Hmm.
can't fund it. So a lot of those projects are done for the next year or so.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's kind of a problem for actors like me who are not super well known. A lot of our work is indie work, at this point in our careers. So there's just not much of it happening.
How has that affected the overall like film industry, the economy in California?
We just don't know yet.
I would have to imagine like craft services, all like, and we're talking about like big productions here, but like all of those people are not working right now.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's jobless, and I keep seeing posts about Hamilton and how everybody's loving Hamilton, but that every single person that they're watching is unemployed.
Right.
There's just no guarantee that we're gonna be back anytime soon. So that's
Yeah.
what's kind of been hard, and then there are things put in place for safety precautions for all these people. Like Crafty, we're no longer doing there's no buffets, everything's prepackaged, handed out to specific people,
Hmm.
and makeup artists have to supply brushes and different palettes for each person. So it's just a lot more time consuming, a lot more expensive, which means less jobs for everybody.
Right. And going forward, I mean, who knows what it's going to look like in 2021. I'm sure there's going to be production again, but what is that going to look like? How different is that going to be compared to what it was in 2019?
Right. There's just no way to know. It's so funny because I keep
Yeah.
everybody's asking that question and we're asking each other and casting directors and agents, like, we're like, "Okay, when is this coming back? What should we expect?" And everybody has no idea. Even the people, like, way on top, no clue. So, who knows? I mean, I wanna know too.
All right. Well, I want to talk about you specifically and how you got into the acting lifestyle in the first place. So tell me about where you grew up and what circumstances happened in your life that made you kind of catch the bug, the acting bug and the drama bug, or were you a theater geek? Were you a musical nerd? Tell me
Yeah.
all about it.
So it's funny. I was actually going to a specialized high school for biomedicine. I was gonna be a veterinarian or some sort of doctor. That
Hmm.
was my dream. I always loved to sing, I always loved to dance. I was born in Manhattan and I grew up in New Jersey. So I was always going to shows in the city. I loved theater. Theater was musicals and everything was played in my house all the time. So I was definitely very surrounded by arts, and my dad's a photographer and my mom loves to dance. So I've always been in the arts in some way, whether it was classes or chorus or something.
Mhm.
But I wanted to be a vet, so I did go to a specialized technical high school for biomedicine.
Oh, so you went to high school to be a vet.
Yeah, so it was
Okay.
actually I had to test to get in, and it was like a collegiate training program. So I took specialized classes every year too that were in the biomedicine field, so epidemiology, and
Yeah.
every year was different, but we each had our own specific academy is what we called them.
Okay.
Then when I was 15, basically my mom wanted to get me away from who I was hanging out with, like the boys I was hanging out with, and I went through a bad breakup, and she forced me to go to a performing arts camp because it was the only camp that would take me last minute. It was like July and she wanted to sign me up for the next week to send me away. I was pissed, like so upset. And even now, like I'm finally thanking her, but I was so upset and I just fell in love.
You had no really experience with the performing arts before that? Like,
No,
you weren't acting in, like, the veterinary school's plays?
no, not yet, no.
Yeah, yeah,
It was I mean, I had taken dance classes, I like to sing, but that was about
yeah.
it. It was not on my radar at all. But then when I went to this camp, I first was very upset and was just sending, like, mean emails to my mom every day. "I feel so bad. I'm so sorry, mom." And and then I just started falling in love, and they forced me to be in a show. I was at this camp like, "Nope, I'm not gonna perform. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna hang out in the woods." But they made me do a show, and I remember being on stage for the final performance and just thinking, "Oh, this is what I wanna feel like forever. I
Mm,
want this feeling all the time." It was very overwhelming for me. So that's kind of when I got bitten by that bug.
yep.
From then on, I started taking acting classes. I started just preparing, I guess, because I about within that year, I decided I wanted to go to college for theater.
So you made the decision to not pursue being a vet?
Yeah, I still had to be in the program, but
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't gonna do it starting when I would say I was 16.
So where did you end up going to college?
I went to Cal State Fullerton, which is in Orange County.
You went out to the West Coast specifically to study performing arts, acting?
Yes. I knew that I would eventually wanna do film because I love film and I love being in front of the camera. I'm
Mm,
comfortable in front of the camera and I knew that, so I wanted to plus the money's in film, like, let's be real, the money's in film, so
yeah.
I definitely wanted to do that rather than theater, so in the long run, rather than theater, so I came out here. Yeah, and it's one of the top 16 in the country, which was great for which was ended up being an amazing program.
So what year did you move out there?
In 2014.
So not too long ago, not terrible, so you've been
No,
at this
not too
only for a
long.
few years.
Yeah, it's been about 6 years.
Yeah, so was the program at Cal State, was that a four-year program?
It was a 4-year program, but after my 2nd year, I had to audition to be part of the BFA. So I was getting my
Okay.
regular bachelor's for 2 years, and then I auditioned to get into the 2-year program for a BFA, which is, like, basically in between a bachelor's and a master's
Mhm.
in the arts for people who don't know.
And did you get it?
I did, I got
Okay.
it.
Well, that would be, the end of the podcast if you
I
didn't.
know, like, "Oh, nope, didn't work out. I'm a vet." No, no, no.
So tell me about your time there. What did you learn? Who did you meet? What did you do that made you decide, "Yes, this is definitely what I'm going to do?"
You know, there were so many factors to it, and I wanted to quit so many times. It was probably the hardest before quarantine, it was probably the hardest time of my life. It was really rigorous. We were working until 2 AM every day.
What does a college workload look like when you're studying when you go there to be an actor? Like, are you
Right.
taking, like, geography and algebra and stuff like that too, or are you just, like, doing nothing but acting?
No, I had to take everything. So, it's a liberal my school was a liberal arts school,
Mhm.
and I had to take everything that every other student has to take. I took geography, algebra, history, a lot of
Yeah.
history classes, everything like that, but then I had to take every year I had a different acting class, and then every year I had a or sorry, every semester, I took an acting class, a movement class, and then another class in theater, whether it was theater history or costuming, like some
Mm.
aspect of theater. Once I was in the BFA program my last 2 years, I had a probably 4 to 5 theater classes a semester plus 2 regular classes. So we were taking over 20 units a semester, and then each semester you're also in a show once you're in the BFA program.
Mhm.
So basically my workload was a lot of acting classes, movement classes, and different dialect classes, just anything regarding theater. And every semester different on top of the show. So
Yeah.
that's why we were in rehearsals and until 2 AM.
Did you realize that you liked a certain aspect of theater more than you thought you would have? Like, for example, like you had to take a lighting class and you really loved lighting.
Yeah, I love costuming. I
Yeah.
had no idea. So basically, if you didn't get into the BFA acting program, you had to choose a different study. Well, you could do generalized theater or you could do like a more specialized, and my backup was costuming because I fell in love with it and I just
Mm.
wanted to design all the clothes. I think that would be so cool. I still really like that. Plus, I also my senior year, I realized I was just absolutely in love with dialects. So I just practice accents and dialects all the time.
Did you have a New Jersey accent when you moved out there?
Okay, so I get a my New Jersey accent comes out when I'm upset, angry, or drunk. Like, then it comes out, but normally, no, I don't have one because my
Yeah.
dad's from Germany, so he has a really thick German accent, and then my mom's from California originally, so she had a Cali accent. I didn't get the Jersey accent except when I'm in a not normal state, and then it comes out.
That's like me. My Buffalo accent comes out when I'm around family or if I'm drinking or
Oh, really?
if I'm
Yeah.
angry, yeah. That nasally Great Lakes thing.
Yeah, there's something about being in, like, a heightened state, whatever that
Mhm.
state is, that brings out the, I guess, childhood stuff. I don't know.
You're right, you revert back to that, like, childhood comfort of this is how I talk. This is how people around
Exactly.
me talk.
Well, and every once in a while, I find, like, I say a weird word or something, and people here have no idea what it means. I'm like, "Oh, it's Jersey slang, don't worry about it."
Do you ever get back out there to visit family?
I haven't been back in 2 years.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess you're not really going right now anyways
I
to
had plans to, and then
did you?
I had to change my flight. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll be out there pretty soon, hopefully.
Who were you looking up to when you were studying? Is there any, like, big name actors or any not even big name, like, teachers or colleagues or whoever that you were looking up to that you were learning from?
I think the people I learned most from were the other people in my classes, like a year or 2 above me, because what was really nice was we got to be in shows all together. When I was in shows, I learned the most being on stage with someone who was 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me. I think that's who I really looked up to, and what's been really cool about my podcast is I'm reconnecting with a lot of those people. So I'm able to kind of learn, I'm just 2 years behind, like, "Okay, what's the
Mhm.
next step? What was your next step?" My teachers were also, of course, just super inspirational, amazing, most of them, like, really
Yeah.
awesome people, but I think my biggest inspirations were the people I was working with.
What kind of shows were you in? Do you remember some of the
Yeah, my first one was a show called Living Out. It was about racism that's shown towards nannies in, like, Upper West Side communities.
Hmm.
And then I was in Pride and Prejudice, I was in a Shakespeare show. My favorite one was my last show, and it was a show about 3 women, and it was just 3 women on stage the whole time for 2 hours, which I love doing anyway, 'cause there was an issue with not being enough female roles in the program, so this was
Mhm.
a really big deal, and I got to play a character with DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, so I actually played 12 different characters
Wow.
within the one person, like, kind of all fighting against each other. So that was my absolute favorite, and I that character sticks with me. Like, I think about her. I just
Wow.
love her.
Do you get graded on your performance in the shows?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
So that's
Um,
part of your final grades?
it's part of the final grade, yeah. So it's hard because it's essentially your director and then the teachers coming to see the production that are grading it.
Mm.
And I think for the most part, you got A's. You didn't get an A if you were disrespectful, if you weren't professional, if you missed rehearsal, or if you
Blew it off,
just
didn't
didn't,
try.
yeah, like if you just didn't do your work. But we were all there for it to be our career. So I don't think we really had an issue with it, with the grading, but it was still kind of scary whenever whenever the staff would come to see it because we knew there was something on the line for us.
I actually when I went to college, I went to a little, SUNY school in New York. When I went, I went as a theater major. Like,
Oh,
that was my
really?
yes, I went in, I was gonna do theater, and 2 weeks or so before the semester started, we get a letter that says, "We're dropping the theater program."
No.
So instead, I ended up majoring in cinema until I realized that I'm taking all the communications classes anyways, I'm just gonna switch to a dual major, communications and cinema. But,
Very
that's why I'm so
cool.
interested in, like, process of what schooling was like for you when you were doing this as your main focus,
Right.
because I never got the chance to do it, and I don't think I could have done it because I was not a singer, I was not a dancer.
Well, I ended up not doing any singing or dancing in college because I chose straight acting. Like, I chose the just straight play path. There's a musical theater path, and then there's acting.
So you didn't have to do any of the musical stuff?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I did
wow.
one musical on campus, but not one of the main stage shows. I did, like, a little because
Yeah.
I like to sing and dance, but nope, I didn't have to at all.
Would you do it now if somebody's offered you a musical role?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would love
Take any
it.
job.
Honestly, at this point, anything to get back on a stage, like, I miss
Yeah.
it so much, especially because 'cause I've been doing since graduating, I've been doing a lot of film stuff, and I've been working on film classes and things like that. I miss the stage.
Well, you mentioned that you were in a Shakespeare production. There are actors out there that do nothing but Shakespeare, and that's
Mhm.
that's their livelihood, that's their life, and they study it, and they got it down. What was that like compared to doing, more contemporary stuff?
So my role in the Shakespeare production was small. During that show, I didn't really get much of a chance to explore it that much, but my senior year, my last semester, we did Shakespeare in my acting class for 6 months,
Mhm,
and that was amazing. So it was actually really wonderful that my teacher did. She had us rewrite Shakespeare. We used all his so not rewrite, we used all of his words, but we were able to condense it from one show into 10 minutes and make it about a contemporary
hmm,
piece. So we used all of his language, but we formed it to fit a contemporary narrative. So that really brought the worlds together for me while still using all of his all of the poetics of his language and all of the basically there's a lot of rules in Shakespeare. So we still
mhm,
followed all those rules of acting, but we made it contemporary. So I was able to bridge that gap. And now because of that, when I work on Shakespeare pieces, monologues or scenes, I connect to it a lot more because I see it in a more through my own lens.
yeah. It's an interesting way of looking at it. That would be an interesting exercise to try to condense it into a more contemporary version.
Yeah. So I took Coriolanus, which is about a dictator, and I did an SNL skit using all Shakespeare language, and I put on an SNL skit.
So was it using his language as in, like, word for word, just picking out pieces, or were you, like, using the
No, it was word for word. Like we're not allowed to touch it. We couldn't break up phases. We just could choose certain stanzas, could choose
gotcha.
certain lines, but we weren't allowed to touch it. It was still 100% Shakespeare.
That's interesting. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it was great.
You're forcing yourself to really study and understand the meaning behind the big, long play and, like,
Exactly. We
all that
couldn't
dialogue.
fake it. We couldn't not fake it because we were the ones piecing it together.
That's probably a really good exercise for aspiring writers too.
Yeah, that's true. I would highly recommend it, like, looking at and the thing with Shakespeare is it's what I didn't realize until doing that is how contemporary it can be. It's all the issues they were having in these stories we're still having today, or at least we're still talking about.
Yeah, sure.
So
I mean, look at all the, Shakespeare plays that are remade into movies, or the themes at least are modern day in modern day movies.
exactly.
So, you graduated, and what did you do? Did you walk out of those doors and just say, "Oh, shit, now I gotta be an actor"?
Yes. I walked out and I was like, "Shit, I have no idea what to do." That was the hardest part. I spent 4 years and nobody told me what was next. I mean, my first thing was I was like, "Okay, I need to move up to LA." So I spent a few months I worked 3 jobs and I saved up enough money to be able to put a down payment, move out to LA, and be able to live off my money for a month or 2 while I got a new job.
What kinda jobs were you working?
I was doing waitressing, I was doing front desk at a hair salon, and then I don't do it anymore, but I was doing princessing for birthday parties.
So you're doing what every aspiring actor, struggling artist is trying to do:
Yeah.
waitressing, the
Yep.
princess thing, and hostessing somewhere, whatever you can get.
Yeah, I did everything. I planned that out, like, way ahead of time. I knew that I wanted to be an actor, so I knew I would need waitressing experience, so I only took waitressing jobs, like, growing up. My first job was 17 and I made sure I was waitressing so that I could waitress throughout college and then afterwards
Mhm.
too. I like very much planned that out. And then the princessing job was awesome. I did it all throughout college and it's because they're all actors and performers themselves, it was so flexible. So any actors, I highly recommend doing something like that. It can't be all your income, but it's really good supplemental job.
Mhm.
I just worked and worked and worked for a few months, and then I moved up to LA, and I got another waitressing job out here, waitressing and bartending, and I started just auditioning.
Did you get, like, a big slap in the face when you moved to LA? Like, was it exactly what you thought it was gonna be, or was it a lot different than you thought it was gonna be?
It's really different. So I thought it would be more glamorous.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not glamorous
I
at
feel like
all.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when you think of Hollywood and LA, you think of the parties and everybody talks about, "Oh, you'll meet people at the parties. Everyone you meet at the parties is gonna be so important." What parties? Like, where are people getting these invitations? I don't know. I've had the most luck meeting other actors actually through work because every actor is a waiter. So we have
Mhm.
all kind of, like, formed little groups through that. But it's definitely not glamorous. I thought it would be easier to get management and getting an agent. It's not easy. I'm still working on it.
Really?
Yeah, so you need work in order to get an agent, and you need an agent to get work. So it's a circle.
What's your in? Is it like you know somebody who can give you a reference?
Pretty much. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. A lot of the time you do need someone to say, "Hey, I have an agent. I'm gonna recommend you to my agent. I think you guys would work really well together."
Mhm.
And then hopefully you get representation through that. But you also can just send in your materials and hope that they look at it and hope that they wanna work with you. But that's hard because there's hundreds of people sending that in. So the best thing to do is just keep working and someone will see your work. It's a lot easier now with social media, and podcasting is one of the things that I'm reaching out to people with and networking through that, but it's really hard. So,
Oh, it's a lot of work.
yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of work for free. I'm trying not to do that anymore because I've been doing that for a while and I need
Yeah.
some sort of compensation for my time.
Sure.
I mean, I've spent a lot of money on training, I want compensation
Mhm.
of some sort, so it's been a lot of just building up my own portfolio, which is what a lot of what I've been doing in quarantine actually, because I was realizing right before quarantine that I just don't have enough material to send out. So I've been working a lot on creating really good audition tapes at home and self-tapes because they will look at that. You say like, "Here's the work I can do. This is what I would send into casting directors. I know what I'm doing."
Mhm.
And then I've been working on my voiceover reel because you have to create reels to send out to them and just classes. It's a ton of classes.
Yeah, so you're doing, like, acting classes and all that stuff, right? Is that what
Yeah, so I started an acting class in Burbank right before quarantine, and then it got kind of cut off after 1 class.
Oh, did it?
I'm able to start it up basically when things open up, I'll start it up again, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I had to take a break from that, but I'm taking a business for actors class during the quarantine, so once a week we meet up and we just kind of keep each other accountable for our goals, like, "Okay, what are you gonna work on today? What's your next goal?" And then we check in to
It's
see
like
if
a
they.
support group.
Yeah, it's basically a support group, but
Yeah.
we have a coach with us who kinda tells us like, "Okay, and this would be your next step."
What are they telling you now? What is your next step now when things are kinda shut down? Are they telling you to just keep doing the home reels and stuff like that and just sending them out there, or are they giving you practical advice to actually get work during this time?
It's a little bit of both. I am starting to look into audiobook narration, especially since I do have my own, like, audio setup here. So
Mhm.
that's kind of my next step right now, but I have all this time to be able to put a really good portfolio together. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on this thing called a castability sheet where you have your headshots, you have examples of work you could do and roles you'd be really good for. It's just like a one sheet for people to
Mhm.
look at as, "This is who I am." So that's what I'm working on now. Which I learned about in the class. I actually haven't heard about that before, so it's just one another thing to try. I'm taking a voiceover class starting next week over Zoom. Through that, I get a piece for my demo, and then I worked with my friend who's an audio engineer and worked on a voiceover thing for him, and then so that we kinda worked with each other. I got something for my reel, and he basically got a commercial for his recording company. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Just every day, I try and work on something.
So I would imagine that a lot of people that are in your similar situation you're talking about these classes that you're taking. There's got to be a cost associated with this. So
Yeah.
you said you're working. How are you affording all of these classes? And like, is the hope that this is going to pay off and I'll be just throwing money around?
That's the goal. I would love to be able to throw money around, roll around in it. That's the goal.
What I'm asking is, because I don't know, but I'm very interested in it. Like, how much are you sacrificing to get to that ultimate end goal in terms of your time and money?
Right. I have put in way more money and time into it than I've gotten back. Way
Right.
more, just
Right.
astronomically more so far. So headshots are $200 and up, like cheap headshots are $200 and then
Yeah.
classes are $400 for a month, like 4 or 5 weeks of classes. That's what the waitress job is for. Like it's just you
That's
have to make sure you have a good job. Like it's hard. That's why everybody wants to be a waiter because the nicer you are, the more tips you get and then the more classes you can take and the more flexible your job is. I saved a lot before quarantine and then I started back at work, then I had to take a break from work with everything
mm,
going on, and then I'm going back tomorrow, and it's
waitressing.
just to waitressing and bartending. So
Mhm.
it's just to replenish what I spent on acting.
Do you ever just get, like, down, like, "This isn't working, I gotta do something else," or are you
Yeah.
focused, laser?
I am very laser focused. I don't have a fear that I'm gonna give up anytime soon, but there are times when I put out a million auditions and I get nothing.
Mhm,
And I know that's because thousands of people are doing the same thing. It's not about
mhm.
me. There are times where I think, can I do this? Like, can I afford it? First of all, is it worth it to not have the stability? And basically, is it worth it? Like, am I getting enough out of it? But then when I am podcasting and when I'm talking with other actors and we're creating our own pieces and art and my actor support group and everything, it's 1,000% worth it. I have to remind myself sometimes. It's hard, but it's worth
It's a
it.
great feeling when you're in the midst of doing something that you love,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It feels full.
But it's hard when you're staring down the month's bills, and
Yeah,
you need to take care of those, and you're getting just rejection after rejection.
exactly. And well, what's really hard is when I'm in the middle of like I'm working on an audition, a self tape here by myself at home with someone helping me reading, and I can't get it right or I don't feel like I'm connecting to this character. That's for me when I feel the most down, when I'm like, "Okay, why am I doing this? I'm not gonna get the." I start getting into, like, self-doubt of, "I'm not gonna get the role. I'm never gonna get a role. Why am
Mhm.
I even wasting my time?" But then eventually you do get a role, and it feels so good and it's so satisfying. It feels like it makes it feel like it was all worth it.
Yeah. Name a couple of actors that you look up to that you wanna emulate or their style that you think you'd like to try to do as well. Do you have anybody that you look up to?
Yeah. So my absolute favorite actress is Alyssia Vikander. She's from The Danish Girl. She's from Light Between Oceans and Tulip Fever, a bunch of things. I love her because she does huge feature films, but they're so niche. They're always about social justice or
Mhm.
about like some aspect of changing the world in some way. I love her.
What's her name again? I
Alyssia Vikander. I'm trying to remember what else she was in an action film recently that I actually didn't see, but that's probably more whatever movie that was probably a more, popular movie, but, and also for that same reason, I love Eddie Redmayne, who I actually I don't wanna be like a Meryl Streep or they can't walk outside, I don't want that for myself. I still want, like, some semblance of a normal life, so I think what I would love is I'm trying to think of, like, an exact person, but someone who gets guest stars or gets 1 season on a show, 1 season on this show, another season on this show, a few
Mhm.
episodes here, a few episodes here, and they are living full lives, make good money, but are still able to be at home. They work for a couple months, have off a couple months, work on other things, on podcasts or books or different forms of art. For me, that's important. I wanna be able to have a balance. So
Hmm.
that's the goal. That's the dream.
How close are you to that, you think? how many years away, how many months away, how many weeks away do you think you are from
Oh god, I
really
have no idea.
feeling a little bit of comfort?
I would like to say 2 years.
2 years?
That's what I would like. I My goal is to feel more comfortable in 2 years.
And you're willing to do whatever it takes in the next 2 years to get there.
Yeah. The problem is COVID's putting a little halt on everything.
It
But
sure is.
yeah. So I listened to Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. I don't know if you do.
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
But he did what I'm doing for 10 years before he ever got anything
Yeah.
substantial. So, I'm
I
hoping that I don't have to wait 10 years, but I might.
I listened to that. I listened to Mark Maron and when he talks to actors, and it's all the same story. It's a lot of years of struggle and hard work, and then eventually just something hits, something connects.
And I'm hoping that in a couple years, I'm getting regular commercial auditions and guest stars and things
Yeah.
like that. If I work once a month on, like, a project I like, I would be very happy.
So you mentioned that, possibly in a couple of years you're acting, but you're doing some other things. What are those other things, artistic endeavors or whatever that you like to spend your time on?
A lot of things, but for me, mostly now, I find myself kind of leaning towards leadership positions. So I want to kind of start my own little actors network. Not necessarily coaching or anything, but through my podcast and through connections I'm making through that, I would love to kind of start my own actor community and make art through that. So whether we're making our own little films, our own web series, or even I like to write. I'm not the best writer, but I really enjoy it, so I wanna be able to write for myself and for my friends and networks and
Yeah. Well, you said, get your friends together to do this in a web series. I mean, that's a great way to do it is, you find the
Mhm.
friend who is the writer and you find the friend who is the cinematographer or the camera person, and you get the friends who are the actors, and you got yourself a little troupe.
Exactly, and I mean, a bunch of us have been it's things we're working on, so that's
Yeah.
been really cool in itself.
Have you done some, like, YouTube stuff? Just make up some sketches and put it out there?
I've done a couple, so I had a friend in college who had his own little production company, so I did a couple with him, and then during quarantine, we did one.
You never know where that stuff's gonna go. You see some people, like, just blow up,
Yeah,
you know?
randomly.
They're
That's
just
what's
doing,
so
like, the
hard, it's
weekly
like
YouTube stuff, and they blow up.
exactly. So, I actually one of my friends has a production company, Multi-House Entertainment, and they're, like, making pretty big things, but that's what they're making the little web series here and there and pilots and
Mhm.
just putting their name out there and getting actors out there, and so I work with them. Anything you can. You're right, you never know what's gonna stick, and you never know what's gonna make you pop. You gotta just keep working, and you have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to love it.
Exactly. Because 'Cause you're not gonna be messing around with your friends shooting YouTube stuff if you don't love it.
Exactly. Well, people do, and that's what's kind of hard to see sometimes, that it's draining for a lot of people,
Yeah.
and you have to love the journey and you have to love the grind. If you
Yep.
don't like creating your website and updating your reel and recording by yourself at home, you're not gonna like it. I don't like, that's the life.
And all the hours that you spend doing that kinda stuff are just hours of experience that you have under your belt.
Exactly.
Alright, so tell me what the goal is for the podcast. What are you planning on doing with that as time goes on?
I have a couple different things. I think mostly I want it to eventually turn into like a network for actors, somewhere they
Mhm.
come to find out information, where agents come to find actors, where casting directors come to find actors. Eventually, I would love to have an actual, like, storefront studio where actors can use it as a communal space, or not even just actors. I keep saying actors, but really anyone in the industry can use it as a communal workspace. There's a couple similar things around here, but I haven't been able to find something that is a home. I want it to be a home for artists in
Mhm.
LA because I think that's what a lot of LA is missing. A lot of us don't come from here. And for me, the hardest part has been being away from family.
Yeah.
And especially during quarantine, like, I really, really struggled with it and, like, had a lot of anxiety and panic about feeling alone. So, that's been the hardest part, and I wanna provide kind of through this, I wanna have, like, a safe space for artists.
Create sort of that family atmosphere for people whose families are far away.
Yeah, and then somewhere where we can answer your questions and leadership and finding mentors and
Yeah,
places to record. Because what is the problem too is we don't have anywhere to record our auditions if we have people at home or we live with our families or something. So I want just a space for people to be able to do their work.
sure. Well, I see behind you, you've got like a big banner of your.
Oh yeah, that was my
So you're,
birthday present. I
yeah,
love it so much, yeah.
a birthday
It's
present to
cute.
yourself.
No, my boyfriend got it for me.
When was your birthday?
June 5th.
Oh, okay. Well, happy late birthday.
Thank you. Yeah,
A month ago.
it takes up my entire wall, and I love it so much.
I was gonna say, I mean, it looks like you're investing in your brand, the brand of the podcast, and whatever you decide to turn it into.
I'm definitely trying. I have merch.
Yeah.
I have a what's my favorite thing, it's so dumb, but I have a shirt that says and I made it, and it says, "Ask me about my podcast," and it has my podcast on the back, and people actually ask me about it, and then I'm like, "Oh, want a sticker?" Like and I have
Man,
stickers of it, like, I'm trying.
I have no swag for mine, none.
Well, I mean, it's something to think about. It hasn't gotten me. It's you're not missing out on that much without having a swag, but
I don't think anybody's
you
putting
can
a big
start
yellow
handing out,
sticker
like,
on it.
smiley faces.
Yeah, I might. I might do that. Hey, this was really good. I appreciate you telling me the story. And, I wanted to talk to you because, like I said before, acting was kind of something I was like dabbling with when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to like, because I don't really know anybody who's actively pursuing acting. And I've always been obsessed with filmmaking and cinematography. Really, it started out though as acting. That was the one thing that I kind of got the bug with. And I kind of went the other direction and went towards more of the production side of it. So,
Mhm.
hey, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I love your podcast. I love the idea behind it, and I think it's so important. So thank you for including me.
Of course, absolutely. And good luck to you and keep in touch and let me know what happens after this whole quarantine thing ends.
I
A-
will, I will.
And I look forward to seeing you on a screen sometime.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it. It was
All
really
right.
nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, that's it. That's the show. I hope you enjoyed it because I really enjoyed talking to Emma. And this is what the podcast is all about, right? People who are doing what they love despite the setbacks and the hardships. And she's right in the thick of it. It's not easy when you're one of thousands of other potential actors out there, all auditioning for the same role, but she's doing it. She's focused and she's determined and she's not going to quit. So I love that. And I thank her for sharing her story with us. And make sure you follow her on Instagram at everydayactorpod. If you want to share your story, just shoot me an email at caughtbyhappy@gmail.com. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you've got going on, and maybe we can get you on the show as well. Bonus points if you're following my social channels at caughtbyhappy on any of those big ones out there. Not sure when the next episode's coming, but be on the lookout for it. I did start a full-time job just this past week, so my weekdays are not as flexible as they once were, but I am committed to bringing people stories of following their passions and dreams to your ears, even if I'm staying up late trying to edit a show and get it done. And speaking of getting it done, this podcast was produced by Ring Media. You can learn more about Ring Media at ringmedia.com. That's rringmedia.com. And you can also sign up to be a part of the Ring Media Network, where we can help each other make more impactful, better quality content. Okay, everyone, stay safe out there, wear your mask, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.